Today here at the problems with the HTML. Now let's start with the XML. What is XML? And you're already familiar with it. It is the extensible markup language. Now again, XML is not developed by any other company or anything. It is formed by the World Wide Web Consortium. Now what is this consortium is the different persons from different industries have come together. Everybody has given their views on it. Some of them have sacrificed their technologies for the standardization. Others were luckiest to that their concepts were accepted. So it is a standard that is formed, and if you write it according to this, it is assumed that all the companies which are participating in this consortium will definitely follow them. And who are those all these companies? All the major companies are part of this consortium. So most of the gadgets that you see or that you use will be in compliance with the standard that is specified by the W3C consortium. Now what is XML as such? This draft was passed or this is accepted actually in 1998. So nearly more than 10 years ago this was accepted, the draft was accepted. A very important thing about the XML. If anybody asks you what is an XML and what the XML is doing, remember XML is used to structure and describe the information. You must remember this word. It is used to structure and describe the information. Its work is only that. It allows you to structure, give a format to the information that you have, the data that you have, and get the information out of it. Okay. Right from the beginning in the 1998 when this draft was forwarded, they were interested in using XML for a specific purpose. And the purpose was to deliver the information via internet. So this was the only one major goal they had it, and till now that's the major goal that XML consortium is having. How to send the information via internet. Now you may say that why that is a problem. Why do we have to bother about transferring the information? You are already familiar, you have already studied TCP/IP and all the other protocols, and what makes this different? Now we are not talking about how the packets are passing from one side to the other. What we are interested in, how do I say that this is the information about my employee, so this is the name, address and so on. How do I transfer my name card or what do you say, contact from my mobile and deliver it to my friend's mobile, so that without doing any effort, my friend is able to get my contacts and install it or put it into their mobile. So how do you transfer from a Nokia to a Samsung or from a Samsung to some other gadget? How do you do it? So when you talk about internet, there is not all the gadgets are not Microsoft, not all the gadgets are Mac or Unix or Linux or anything. How do you transfer the different information from one company to the other company when both the companies are using different types of machines or different operating systems? So that is what is being targeted. They are not interested in which protocol must be used, how many packets must be sent from one side to the other. We are not interested in that. We are at the application level of the network layer, whatever you take it. So at the application layer, we are only interested in something that is important to our application, not how the network connection is established, how the routing takes place. That's not that has nothing to do with the XML. Here, what I'm interested in saying that suppose if I send my name card from my mobile, the other mobile must be able to understand that the first part is the name of the person, second part is the phone number. So it is not the other way around. So when I send some information from my mobile, the other mobile must be able to accept it in the same way. So this is what is the meaning of saying describing the information. Somehow I must describe the information. Remember, I am not using separate software or I am not doing anything. I am using the markup to describe my information. So that is what is XML. You are not using separate software to say that thing. You are just marking the content and saying that the first part is marked with the special tags to say that this is the name, other one is the mobile number or something else. Okay, let's look at the language. Okay, XML is a meta language. What is the meaning of saying it is a meta language? You are already familiar with this word meta. The meta was coined way back in the databases. When you learned the databases, you came across a concept called as metadata. So data about the data. So what is this data about the data? When you say, if you take a record from a student's table, then the first field is register number, the second field is name, which is varchar, which is 25 in length. Now what is this varchar, which is 25 in length, or integer of length 5, or decimal with so many precision? These are the data that describes the data that you want to store within the database, and we say that this is metadata, data that describes the data. So we say that name is a data that is varchar with 25 characters. So that is not the actual name. The name could be Mahesh, Ganesh, or something else. Actual data is described using some extra or some other data, and that is what metadata. Now here I am talking about meta language. What is the meaning of saying meta language? A language that describes something. So that is the meaning. Now here everything that we do in XML is text. We only type the text. But some text is the actual data, other text is something that describes what it is. So when I use the XML, I am not writing a cryptic code in binary or any other thing. Everything appears as a plain text. The text itself is used to describe the data. That is why it is called as meta language. A language that is used to describe the other language. That is the meaning of it. Something that describes, you may say that which is the other language. One of the languages I have told you is the XML. XML is a language altogether. Why it is a language, we'll come back to it in some slightly other classes. We'll see why it is called as a language and why we have to call something as a language. Okay, let's look at the second point over here. It's a method in which we are able to put the structure to the data. We are able to describe it. Now there are 4 properties that are associated. Whenever you are using the XML, XML must be easy to read. Now when we say easy to read, there are 2 aspects for this. One for the human, other one is for the machine. Both of them must be able to read it easily. So even if you are able to go through an XML document, it must be possible for you to say that this part is something. Just now I just showed you that this is a button. So you know that that part is for the button. Similarly, when you use the XML for the machine as well as for the human, it must be easy to read. There must not be any ambiguity in the way you represent it. It must be extensible. What is the meaning of that is your HTML was not extensible. What was there, you are supposed to use it. You can't create something of your own, whereas it is not the case with the XML. It is possible to do that thing. The last one is platform independent. That is regardless of your operating system, your type of gadget that you are using, whether it's a mobile or whether it's a laptop or whether it's a supercomputer, it's regardless of that, you must be able to use it. Just look at the 2 differences between the HTML and the XML. There are basic differences are there. Now when we talk about HTML, I've already told in the first class, HTML was exclusively meant for describing, for displaying the information to the user. So it was more of presentation. A simple example over here, if you just look at this particular part, you are already familiar. This will appear in bold, and there is a break, and the second one will appear in the italics. So if I click, I think I will be able to get that thing. So these 2 represent the same thing. Now, if you look at this particular part and if you say, okay, give me the last name of this person, HTML will not be able to do it. HTML will only say that I know how to show that it in bold. I don't know whether it's the name of a person or some name of a place or anything. I'm not really interested in that. I have a text, a piece of text was given to me and I was asked to show it in bold. So you can't extract the data out of that HTML. But if you just look at the XML, even though I have not talked about the XML, this is how the XML is written. So here we are structuring the data. We say that this is the first name, this is the mid name, this is the last name, this is email ID. Everything is put in the tag. You notice that those tags are not the same as the HTML tag. Why they are not same? Because XML is extensible. I am free to use my own tag. I don't have to follow HTML or XML or anything. I can generate my own tag and use it. So it is very flexible, provided I'm able to describe the data. So that thing must be there. So you use your own tags to describe the data. Whereas what XML or what HTML is saying is, we have some tags, you use those tags to show the things in beautiful way. Whereas what XML says that we don't have any tags, you take your own, you create your own tags and describe your data. So that is the difference. In HTML, the tags are fixed, whereas in XML there are hardly any tags are there. All the tags are yours. You want something on your own, you create a tag and describe it. Remember, it does not mean that you describe it in any way and every way. There must be some order so that the other person is able to get it. For example, you may say here that this is name. Other person may say that it is e-name. Both are valid in XML. Okay. So then the problem will come. There is name here, there is e-name here. When we have this confusion, we have to put some restriction and say that, okay, if you want to interchange between two pieces, the names must be proper, the tags must be properly named. That is what usually happens. Sometimes you transfer a name card from your Samsung to the Nokia. Suddenly it just says that I can get it. It says there is a name card, but when you try to save it, it just says I don't know the way in which. The reason is the tags are not matching, or something is not understood by one of the gadgets. So when you have this, when you have this kind of problem, you go for a standardization. You say that everybody is supposed to use some standard, but the standard you know very well. Again, I'm repeating, standard is the minimum, it is not the maximum. If you, it is all the basic requirements. Suppose say if you go to the, take an automobile, Bharat 3 compliance is nothing but a standard. If a car satisfies some condition, if the pollution level is such, the fuel efficiency and so on, the minimum requirement, if it passes that minimum requirement, the car is given Bharat 3 compliance. That does not mean that Maruti 800 with Bharat 3 compliance is same as Mercedes 800 with the Bharat 3 compliance. What is the difference here? Maruti may satisfy only the base minimum criteria. I'm not discarding Maruti to just a comparison. Mercedes may satisfy this and it may have something extra apart from this. So the standardization just says what must be the minimum thing that must be supported. Above that minimum, whatever you have, it is well and good, you can have it, but you can't go beyond that level. So they are only saying the minimum. If you satisfy the minimum, it is compliance. If you don't come to that minimum level, it is not compliance with the standards. Above that, you may cross and go way ahead with that standard. That is up to you. Okay. Let's go to the next part. That is some difference between these two. HTML is a modified version of the SGML, Standard Generalized Markup Language. It uses some of the syntax which were there, but not all of them. Some derived version of it. Again, you are already familiar. You can use the CSS. Now, when it comes to the XML, again, XML is the abbreviated form, the subset of HTML. Again, it's the same thing. It has a base in the HTML, but HTML was a bit complicated. However, it is meant for, usually this is meant for developers. So it is not, even though you can read the XML, but the thing is meant for developers. Okay. It is best for delivering it across different machines. The last one statement I will stop at this point. XML is more like HTML minus minus. You are very familiar with this plus plus and minus minus. So you say that C plus plus is something better than C. So C plus plus is a slightly higher version of this. So HTML plus plus it means to say that something more than HTML. XML is not HTML++. So don't think that XML is something that's going to replace HTML. It is not. Both of them have a very different scenario. HTML is meant for displaying. XML is meant for describing. Remember that thing. XML describes the data. HTML is meant for displaying it. So both of them definitely are derived out of HTML, but XML is very less. I think too many things are dropped out of that thing. So let's look at a few rules.